In the year 217, the sun beamed across the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, where two great empires stood poised for a clash that would echo through the ages. The Roman Empire, led by the ambitious Emperor Caracalla, sought to expand the empire's reach and secure its borders in the Middle East against the persistent threat of the Parthian Empire, ruled by the cunning king Artabanus V. Tensions arose between the two empires, as Caracalla had murdered Parthian diplomats that had arrived to offer diplomatic terms to the Romans before any conflict could arise. However, Caracalla, a young and ambitious emperor, had no interest in talking diplomacy. His eyes were set on expanding his empire, and in the process, his own legacy. Before the Roman Emperor Caracalla could lead his legions against this Parthian threat, he was assassinated by a Praetorian prefect named Macrinus. Macrinus then seized power for himself, claiming that due to the threat of the oncoming Parthian force led by Artabanus V, it was crucial to repel the threat before deciding on the next successor. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the two armies approached one another on the dry plains near the city of Nisibis, a strategic stronghold on the edge of the Roman Empire. The city of Nisibis, located in modern-day Turkey near the Syrian border, served as a vital stronghold for the Romans in their eastern provinces. Its strategic position allowed control over trade routes and military movements. Macrinus knew that he could not allow such a vital Roman stronghold to be lost in the region. As such, he lined his legionnaires up for battle into the ever-reliable triplex axis formation and marched to meet the threat head-on. Artabanus's Parthian force was made up entirely of cavalry, primarily light horse archers whom led the lines, heavy horse cataphracts in support, and lastly heavily armored camel riders at the rear. Macrinus's Roman army, in contrast, was made up of primarily infantry, with skirmishers placed strategically between the legions to help repel any head-on charges from the cataphracts. As the two forces converged near Nisibis, the Romans, relying on their heavy infantry formations, prepared for a pitched battle. The Roman force was made up almost entirely of infantry. The Parthians, on the other hand, had a force of entirely cavalry, primarily light horse archers. In close combat, the Romans would be at an advantage, and Macrinus, an experienced commander, knew this, so he opted to have his soldiers hold firm in a defensive formation and allow the enemy to come to him. The Parthians, renowned for their cavalry tactics, positioned their mounted archers into position to pounce on the Roman front lines, and with that they surged forward, harassing the Roman infantry with volleys of arrows. Parthian archers continued to launch volleys of arrows, attempting to weaken the Roman infantry before a full assault with the cataphracts. However, Macrinus's legions held their ground, forming tight formations to minimize the impact of the arrows. The Parthian cataphracts, gaining momentum, begin to charge directly at the Roman infantry. A loud and devastating sea of metal and fury stampede across the battlefield. The Romans braced themselves for impact. Macrinus swiftly acts on an opportunity. He sends some cavalry and infantry to flank the cataphracts and cut down the light Parthian horse archers. Before they have any time to react, the light Parthian riders are caught off guard and dealt a heavy blow. Macrinus's maneuver works excellently, delivering a heavy blow to the Parthian light cavalry. Artabanus, realizing his force has been outmaneuvered, quickly orders an orderly retreat. Macrinus, however, did not consider that the sections of soldiers he had sent away from the main force were now out in the open and vulnerable. Upon their retreat, the Parthian horse archers peppered the Romans with volleys of arrows, causing significant losses to Macrinus's force. After sustaining losses, Macrinus then orders his men to feign a retreat, attempting to lure the Parthian cataphracts to give pursuit. The Romans had planned a trap. Upon their retreat, they laid down spiked stakes. Artabanus fell for the trap. He ordered his heavy cavalry forward to give pursuit to what he thought was a fleeing enemy. The cataphracts were unable to see the traps the Romans had laid due to heavy amounts of dust that littered the battlefield. They charged head-on into the spikes, causing many of their riders to be dismounted. The Romans swiftly organized and charged the now dismounted heavy riders, cutting them down with ease as they had been injured from falling from their mounts. On the third and final day of the battle, Artabanus was eager to put an end to the fighting. He ordered forth his entire force to try and quickly envelop the Roman formation. Macrinus, seeing the oncoming Parthians, ordered his men to swiftly break formation and extend their lines to match that of the Parthian lines. The two sides skirmished one another, leading to continued casualties on both sides. At this point, Macrinus, with his army on the verge of breaking, sent an embassy to Artabanus, informing him of the death of the treacherous emperor Caracalla by his own hands. He offered a substantial compensation if they put an end to the battle. The Parthian army had also suffered heavy casualties, plus Artabanus had believed he was fighting the treacherous Caracalla this whole time. With this news, he agreed to a peace, after receiving 200 million sesterces from the Romans. The battle ended inconclusively, and in June 218, Macrinus was defeated by the forces supporting the ascension of the new Roman emperor, Elagabalus, outside Antioch, while the Parthians and Artabanus faced the uprising of the Persian Sassanid clan under Ardashir I. Nisibis was thus the last major battle between Rome and Parthia, as the Parthian dynasty was soon overthrown by Ardashir in the year 224, and the reign of the Sassanid Persians would rule the Middle East for over 4 centuries.